Today we're going to be talking about movies. Movies. Everyone likes a good movie. It's a really good Friday night activity, and the movie industry, just by box office tickets alone, sells approximately $11 billion a year, just by box office sales. So the purpose of today is to talk about one particular category of movies, and that's rated R movies. So rated R movies have been really prevalent in our culture these days. We got Deadpool that just came out. We got The Revenant that came out last year that gave Leonardo DiCaprio his first Oscar. We got other good movies that I'm going to be talking about in this speech that have been coming out, that have been super big box office sales. And the number of rated R movies has actually been increasing throughout the years. And then the profit margins are a little bit scawampus though. So our first point we're going to be discussing is the number of rated R movies that have been produced, and I'm going to be selecting the year 2000, 2005, 2010, and 2015. And then my second point is going to be profit margins. Profit margins are going to be the same years that I just discussed. And then, so going to our first points. So the number of rated R movies that have actually been released into theaters. So 2007 is the first year we're going to focus on. 2000 is the first year we're going to be focusing on. There was 171 movies of the rated R category made in 2000. The top of that particular year was Gladiator. Going on to 2005, 5 years later, we have 171. Same number. Rated R movies made. The top of that particular year was Wedding Crashers. Going on 5 years later, 175 rated R movies were made in 2010. The top of that year was The King's Speech, and last year, 2015, there were 200 rated R movies released into theaters, the largest of them all. And the top of that year, we've already discussed, it was The Revenant. So that brings us to our second point. Profit margins. So the profit margins have been up and down, but kind of all over the place with rated R movies. In 2000, the high for the movie, that was Gladiator. The highest box office sales, Gladiator, had $187.7 million in revenue. But the average movie that particular year was only $14.17 million. And that means, and I did some number crunching, there was 79 movies under $1 million in revenue. That's 46.2% of the movies were under $1 million. 2005, the highest movie, Wedding Crashers, was at $209.25 million in box office sales. The average of that year, though, was $10.8 million. And 98 of those movies were under the $1 million mark. That makes 57% of the rated R movies made in 2005 under the $1 million box office revenue mark. In 2010, of the 175 movies that were made, 93 were under the $1 million mark. And in 2010, the high mark of that year, The King's Speech, had $135.45 million. That's a little lower than the previous high, but the average has increased this year. There's $13.9 million on average in 2010 compared to 5 years before, which was 10.8. And now 2015, last year, the high point, The Revenant, was $183.6 million. And the average of that went down by $0.9 million. The average of 2015 was $13 million. And there was 112 movies that were under the $1 million mark. Once again, that's 57% of rated R movies were under the $1 million revenue mark. So just in conclusion, talking about rated R movies, the amount of movies have been made have been increasing on a trending level over the past 15 or so years. However, the profit margins have been decreasing slowly but surely, and they've kind of been up and down. The highs have not been so high as they used to, and then the average have been going down. And the amount of movies that were under the 1 million mark has been increasing. But all in all, rated R movies have still become a very strong part of our society.